I turned this $60 dresser into a mortgage payment. You see, this isn't just any dresser, it's a Broyhill Brasilia tall boy. It's like the first edition Charizard of the furniture world. A local college student sold it to me because it didn't go with her decor, but the only downside was that it was spray painted black and it was missing 2 of the original handles. I started off by stripping the black spray paint with a chemical stripper. It was totally tedious and I had to get it out of every nook and cranny. The veneer on the drawer fronts was super thin, so I hand sanded that with 220 grit. I sanded the rest of the piece down with 180 grit to remove any of the remaining varnish. I ordered 2 replacement handles off of eBay, which as you can see cost me a pretty penny. I followed the professional color schedule, which included Mohawk's medium brown wiping stain, followed by a few coats of easy vinyl sealer. Then a few coats of raw umber glaze. I sealed it all up with lots of coats of semi-gloss lacquer. Now here's where we started and here's where we ended up. This was my first mid-century modern restoration and it was totally my gateway piece. I ended up selling this piece for $1,400 and I regret it every day because I loved it so much. I somehow paid $20 for a pair of $2,600 chairs at the wildest estate sale I had ever been to. I spotted this chair on top of a workbench and I recognized the chrome immediately. They turned out to be Milo Bauman chairs from the 1970s, like this guy was a pioneer of modern design. We took them apart and somehow managed to fit them in our car, but my next step was to clean them because wow, they were gross. I used my Hart cordless spot cleaner, which I always keep in my car for emergencies, so I knew it would be perfect for cleaning these neglected dirt-covered chairs, and I was right. Just wait until you see how black the water was. But I made sure to keep cleaning until the water ran clear. To clean the chrome, I used very fine steel wool and a diluted vinegar solution, which worked like a charm. I screwed the seats back in with my 4V Hart screwdriver, and the satisfying clean was complete. Now remember, here's the before and here's the after. This was such a fun flip, and I am so happy with how they turned out. I bought these nightstands at an estate sale for $50, and I was shocked to see an exact pair recently sold online for over $1,200. So it became my mission to restore them, and like a few people I've met in life, they look great from afar, but had some real damage when I looked closer. To fix the damage, I used a lot of wood glue, clamps, and painter's tape, and while that dried, I used pre-colored epoxy putty to fill in the giant chunk missing. Once that cured, I sanded it down smooth. The most time-consuming part of this project was easily the hand sanding of the legs. I did use my orbital on both tiers of the tables using 120 grit and then 180 grit. To seal the tables, I applied many coats of satin lacquer. There was one little blemish that I covered up with my Blendall sticks, and I sealed that with lacquer as well. Now remember, here's the before and here's the after. You might think, well, they look the same. Yes, that is the point. They're ready for another 50+ years of use, plus I did leave some contrast, which I personally love. I drove almost 700 miles to pick up this gorgeous piece of history, and you'll understand why once you see what it does. It's a 1960s Saba stereo from Germany, and yes, that is teak. I started off by giving it a good clean so I could better see what I was working with. It was in pretty good shape, so I decided to only refinish the top. The old varnish came off so easily with 120 grit. There was also a chunk missing from the built-in drawer pull, so I used epoxy putty to fill in the damage. Once it cured, I hand sanded it to shape with a very fine grit sanding pad. Next, I had to find out how to color match it, which was incredibly hard to do, and I still didn't get it exact. I did apply the lacquer to the areas I didn't refinish, and it basically erased any scratches or marks that were present. It was like magic. I applied several coats to seal the bare teak top, and wow, just look at this before and after. It looks like I applied a new sheet of veneer. I'm so happy with how it turned out, and now I don't feel so bad for the lengths and the price I paid to get this piece. And did I mention it also works perfectly? I drove 3 hours to buy a dresser full of panties. I won it via an auction for $120. I was definitely taken by surprise when I found an entire drawer full of undies and socks, some of which didn't look very clean. But I saw potential in this burled oak piece, so I sanitized it really well and got to work. I scraped off the old finish and I sanded and sanded and sanded some more. I used epoxy putty to repair the chip veneer and I re-glued some of the wood support. I installed new angled leg mounts and began applying painter's tape. Yup, you heard that right, I'm gonna paint using Fusion cast iron. I strategically painted to add a little bit of funk, including the tips of the new longer legs I'm about to install. I also mixed up a custom color to conceal the veneer repairs I made earlier. I then sealed it all up with matte water-based polyurethane, and after a few coats of poly, the transformation was complete. Here's the before and here's the after. This one is definitely funky and I love it. The longer legs brought it from an awkward height of 24 inches to a standard dresser height of 31 inches.